viewers, I am Taiwo James Ayeni. Welcome to News Analysis. President-elect Donald Trump is pushing hard for Gates confirmation. Gates documents hacked.
Good evening and welcome. Tonight, President-elect Donald Trump is engaging in the fight to save the nomination of Matt Gaetz to become Attorney General, even as a computer hack appears to have unearthed potentially damaging information about the former congressman. Sources familiar with the case confirm the hack accessed sworn testimony from a civil case of two women, including one who says she had sex with Gaetz when she was 17, an accusation Gaetz denies. With some Senate Republicans already wavering over the Gaetz pick and the House Ethics Committee considering whether to release its investigation, the president-elect is now actively lobbying for Gaetz's confirmation. Mr. Trump also moving ahead with picks to fill other key spots in his administration. Today naming TV personality Dr. Oz to lead Medicare and Medicaid services. Garrett Haake has late details.
Tonight, President-elect Trump traveling to Texas to witness the launch of a SpaceX rocket, the company run by his key ally, billionaire Elon Musk. And announcing two new administration picks, TV personality and physician Dr. Mehmet Oz as the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services Administrator, who Trump says will, quote, work closely with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to take on the illness industrial complex. Critics have accused Dr. Oz of at times offering questionable medical advice. And Howard Lutnick, his transition co-chair and Wall Street executive, to serve as Commerce Secretary. All while Trump tonight was asked if he's reconsidering his choice for Attorney General, former Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz. No. It comes as an unidentified hacker was able to gain access to a file containing depositions of two women who have made allegations against Gaetz, what is described as damaging testimony, according to a source familiar and an email obtained by NBC News, though it's unclear if the hacked material was released. One of the depositions is from a woman who alleges she had sex with Gaetz when she was 17, an accusation Gaetz strongly denies. Both women testified to the House Ethics Committee, which is expected to meet tomorrow to weigh whether to release its report. The House Speaker has said he's against it.
The president has the team in place to do what the American people have elected him to do, and we're going to support that effort.
But some Senate Republicans want to review it.
There needs to be legitimate vetting. I think we need to embrace advice and consent with full enthusiasm.
Gaetz was also investigated by the Justice Department over allegations of sex trafficking, but prosecutors ultimately did not file charges. Gaetz has denied any wrongdoing.
Nobody should be disqualified because of a media report.
It's more than a media report. He was investigated by the department he wants to lead.
And they didn't proceed forward.
A transition official tells NBC News Trump has been, quote, heavily working the phones, calling Republican senators to push for Gaetz.
I wouldn't bet my house on it one way or the other.
If all Democrats oppose a nominee, they can only lose 3 Republican votes to be confirmed.
What these picks tell me is Donald Trump is going through the same movie. Chaos, contempt for the law, and disrespect for the American public.
Garrett, the Trump team will make a big push there on Capitol Hill tomorrow. What's it going to look like?
That's right, Lester. Vice President-elect J.D. Vance will be here on the Hill tomorrow for meetings with senators alongside Gaetz and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, who's also facing some resistance from Republicans. Lester?
All right, Garrett Haake, thanks. Here in New York, prosecutors told the judge in President-elect Trump's hush money case they opposed dismissing it, but said the sentencing could be delayed. Laura Jarrett is here. Laura, the judge has a big decision to make here.
Another first in this nation's history, Lester. The judge could decide to postpone the sentencing until Mr. Trump is no longer in office, meaning 2029. That's something that the DA proposed for the first time today. We could also see him wipe out the conviction entirely. That's what the defense team wants. Obviously, the prosecution pushing back. No word yet from Judge Merchan on when exactly he will rule, but you'd have to expect he's going to do this sometime before Inauguration Day, Lester.
All right, Laura Jarrett, thank you.
Now to a contentious battle over trans rights. Republican Congresswoman Nancy Mace introducing a resolution that could ban transgender women from using female bathrooms in the halls of Congress. Today, Mace defending her bill, calling the measure a protection of women's rights. Take a listen.
I'm a feminist trying to protect and fighting and vowing to protect women and girls. We have rights. as women, and we have the right not to be bombarded by men in our restrooms, changing rooms, or locker rooms.
The move, May says, is a direct hit at newly elected Representative Sarah McBride, soon to become the first openly trans person to serve in Congress. McBride posting this on X, quote, "Every day Americans go to work with people who have life journeys different than their own and engage with them respectfully. I hope members of Congress can muster that same kindness." Ryan Nobles tonight live on Capitol Hill with this one. Ryan, walk our viewers through what this is about. Representative Mace introduced the bill, hoping for Speaker Johnson to include this as part of the House rules package for the next Congress. What are we hearing from him tonight?
So Mike Johnson was initially asked directly the question about whether or not a man is a man and a woman is a woman, and if there's any ambiguity there. He initially didn't answer that question directly, but did talk about the right for all members of Congress to be treated with respect and to have proper dignity. But then later on in the day, he called all the reporters together to make another statement on the issue. Listen to what he said.
A man is a man and a woman is a woman, and a man cannot become a woman. That said, I also believe, that's what Scripture teaches, what I just said, but I also believe that we treat everybody with dignity.
So what does that mean in terms of this resolution that Nancy Mace wants added to the rules package that would specifically say that only biological men can use men's bathrooms and biological women can use women's bathrooms? That remains an open question. And this is, of course, a very divisive issue, and it is one that Republicans highlighted time and time again on the campaign trail. Some would argue successfully that it was an issue that resonated with many Americans who aren't familiar with transgender rights or nervous about the prospect of transgender people having more rights throughout the country. So Republicans in many ways trying to capitalize on this issue, which is so personal and really affects the lives of many people in a very direct way. How it plays itself out here on Capitol Hill is something that the Speaker doesn't really seem to want to get too involved in, but his fellow Republican members may not give him an option to just avoid it completely, Tom.
You know, Ryan, what is your sense? I mean, is this going to be the first big fight sort of the new Congress? And I don't know if it goes into the administration, but is this what it's going to be about?
I mean, I don't know if it's going to be the first big fight, Tom. I don't know if it's going to be something that lingers on throughout the congressional term. But I do know it is something that Republican members are talking a lot about. This issue of the role that transgender people play in the United States conversation, the rights that they're asking for, the way that they assert those rights across the country is something that Republicans ran on and fought against in a major way. So you could definitely see this something that they bring up every opportunity that they have. And it just so happens that this new member of Congress, Sarah McBride, who is the first openly transgender woman to serve in Congress, happens to win the seat at the same time that this has become a political flashpoint and culture war. So it's not something that Republicans are going to give up on, that's for sure. Whether or not this bathroom issue becomes one that lingers on into the new Congress, that's one we're going to have to wait and see.
Ryan Nobles, great to have you. Thank you for explaining all that. For more on the news from Capitol Hill and the Trump transition, I want to bring in our political pros. Julie Roginski, Democratic strategist, Matt Gorman, Republican strategist, and Patrick Svitek, Washington Post reporter. We thank you all for being here. Julie, I want to start with you, this transgender bathroom battle. What do you think of this? Do you think this is something that Republicans, and we should say Representative Nancy Mace, who's bringing this up, do you think her motives here are because of what she says, or do you think this is purely politics?
I think it's purely politics. And look, one of the advantages of being my age is you were around long enough to remember when the same kind of rhetoric was used against gay people, right? That if you're a gay man, for example, you can't use a men's bathroom because, God forbid, you do something to another man while you're in there. I mean, it's ridiculous. And this is exactly the same thing. Sarah McBride is a duly elected member of Congress from Delaware. The people of Delaware sent her there knowing who she is. And if she wants to use the women's bathroom, she's more than welcome to use any bathroom that I'm in, because as a woman, I actually believe that her rights are exactly the same as my own. And for Nancy Mace to exploit this and exploit a really vulnerable community at a time like this for political gain, I think is just really unconscionable. Look, there's one thing to be made, an argument to be made that a lot of people resonate with, that maybe girls should not play, that transgender girls should not play on girls' teams. And while I don't necessarily know where I stand on that, I do know that that is an argument that people can make. But when two adults use the bathroom together, or the same kind of bathroom together, there's absolutely no reason to assume that one is going to do something to the other simply because they are transgender. If they did, that would be illegal.
Matt, talk to me about this one. We know that one of the closing ads for the Trump-Vance team was that ad of Kamala Harris talking about providing prisoners with funding to have trans surgeries. So my question to you is, do you think this is a fight that she's picking because it's going to raise her profile politically, or do you think she truly does not want to have her fellow representative in the same bathroom with her?
I can't speak to her motives. I think she's emboldened certainly by that ad. I mean, the closing line was Kamala's for they, them, Trump is for us. And look, it spoke to something beyond just that video of Kamala talking about taxpayer-funded gender reassignment surgeries for inmates. It was about culture. It was about priorities, right? And I think the idea here that Republicans feel emboldened, I understand why, being on this cultural issue. And look, you can do what you did here in D.C. They changed the law, so there's unisex bathrooms. There's unisex bathrooms in the Capitol. I think at the end of the day, they will find some way out of this where everybody feels comfortable and respected to whatever extent. But I'm not going to try and cast whatever motives on Nancy she has.
President-elect Donald Trump's nominations have been embattled with a lot of controversies, in terms of accusations coming to them from the opposition party and a few even from their party, where we have likes of Matt Gaetz being accused of sexual offenses. We have RFK Jr. also, and we have Exeth, going through a lot presently. And the president-elect is fighting hard to ensure that they scale through. When, for example, Exeth now, the Ethics Committee would sit very soon concerning the charges leveled against him, concerning the accusations, the allegations. So, in this video, let's see what's obtainable for us.
She has. Okay, I want to transition now, bring Patrick into this conversation. I should probably use a better phrase here. But Patrick, regarding the Gaetz nomination, you heard the president digging in his heels earlier, refusing to reconsider Matt Gaetz for AG. This has now become a game of political chicken with members of his own party. Who do you think will blink first?
Yeah, I think the major, most recent development in this is that it's becoming increasingly evident that Trump and the transition team are very serious about this nomination, whether it's the statement we heard from Trump tonight or the fact that Vance is coming to Capitol Hill to broker some meetings with Gaetz later this week. I think when this nomination was first announced, there was some speculation that, maybe Gaetz, this was some, political chess move. Gaetz was maybe some sacrificial lamb for another AG nominee down the line. I think what's become very clear, also from the outreach that senators say they're receiving, is that Trump is very serious about this and is willing to spend some real political capital on this particular nominee.
I know there was some reporting in the New York Times that even President-elect Trump was at about 50%. He wasn't sure if Gaetz would get elected. If he thinks he's going to lose this battle, do you think he switches gears and maybe either elevates Todd Blanche or finds somebody else?
I don't think that's off the table. And I think that, the New York Times reporting certainly nods at the fact that Trump understands that Gaetz, as it stands this moment, may face an uphill battle. But I think the indications right now are that Trump and his transition team are willing to fight for the Gaetz nomination, at least at this moment.
Yeah, Matt, why do you think Trump is going so hard for this one for Matt Gaetz as AG?
I mean, I think, first of all, he likes him, respects him, certainly as a supporter. But let me step back for a second. I think this is, in many ways, negotiation, right? If he can get Matt Gaetz AG, he will take Matt Gaetz AG. But signaling any weakness, signaling any reconsideration, not even a week since he's been announced and well before any sort of confirmation hearing or even a vote, you're just giving license for Republicans to jump ship off this. You need, if you're the Trump transition, maintain total steadfast support behind him, because that's the only way, if this is going to succeed, it does.
Julie, what do you think about the confirmation hearings, right? Because an attorney for Matt Gaetz' accuser tells NBC News that the women do not want to testify in public if the ethics committee decides not to release the report. So what do you think happens here? And how do Democrats sort of handle themselves in those confirmation hearings when you're dealing with something that is so sensitive, like the allegations that are being brought against Matt Gaetz?
I think we already know a lot of what's in this ethics committee report. It's already out there. He was alleged, according to the attorney for these women, And these women testified that he was having sex with an underage girl. When he found out that she was not yet 18, he allegedly waited until she was 18 and went back to having sex with her at the same time that he was at parties with drugs and underage girls. So, you know, is this somebody that we want as the chief law enforcement officer in the United States? I don't think so. What else do you need to know? And the question that we have to take a look at is how much control is Donald Trump going to have over the Senate? Because I think that's what this really is about. This is about ensuring, from Donald Trump's perspective, that there is no separation of powers, that there is no co-equal branch of government. He already owns the Supreme Court for all intents and purposes, and this is about owning the legislative branch as well. And the real question for me is, what is Mitch McConnell going to do, who's no longer the leader? He doesn't have to worry about corralling votes anymore. I don't know that he's running again. This is his last hurrah. Is at the very end of his career, Mitch McConnell finally going to do the right thing and stand up for the institution that he has led over the course of these many years and say, enough is enough. We are not going to allow any president, including this one, to railroad us on our way out the door. And I hope and pray that it's not just the Susan Collins, the Lisa Murkowskis of the world, but it's somebody like a Mitch McConnell who stands up for the sacred duty that I think he has as a United States senator to tell the president that we have advice and consent power here and that we're going to exercise it and not just be a rubber stamp for whoever you want to put up here, no matter how unqualified.
Patrick, I'm going to ask our great director, Brett Holy, to roll some video. This is just before our broadcast when Elon Musk and President-elect Trump were watching the launch of the SpaceX there in Texas. And my question to you is, how is this relationship sort of forming between the president-elect and Elon Musk? I ask because he seems to always be by his side. President Trump is there today. But we know that the pick for Commerce Secretary was who Elon Musk actually wanted for Treasury Secretary. So clearly Trump is still making his own decisions. How would you describe this relationship right now?
Well, look, I mean, taking a step back here, I think Trump has, you know, initially admired Musk for his, you know, business acumen as simply as a fellow rich guy. We've known that's, you know, a reason that Trump admires other people from the beginning. And then also Musk was just very politically supportive of Trump in this campaign. Both with his public activities and his financial activities. And from Musk's perspective, he took a big gamble on backing Trump as much as he did in the final months of this race, and it paid off. And honestly, Musk just seems in some ways to be reveling in the moment of being so close to political power and someone that he helped elect. And so that's how I look at the relationship right now. But as you pointed out, Musk has made some political statements in the past few days that have maybe backfired or rubbed the Trump transition team the wrong way. He may have gotten out on his skis and pushing for Howard Lutnick for Treasury Secretary. And then, of course, there's been reporting in many outlets that privately some Trump advisors are starting to get a little worn out by just how close Musk is staying to Trump and how often he's offering his advice behind the scenes. And so this is a relationship that I think made sense initially, but as it goes on, I think it could show some signs of strain just given the egos involved here.
Matt, you get the last word here. Explain to me the Dr. Oz pick with Medicare and Medicaid.
I mean, I think a couple things. Before he was a TV doctor, he was just a plain old doctor and a world-renowned thoracic surgeon, starting 2 cardiac care centers, including one up in New York Presbyterian, professor at Columbia. But more importantly, what this signals is you're going to see a Republican administration, I think, take on pharmaceutical companies, even through what J.D. Vance has said when he was on Joe Rogan's show, and others in a way that you would not have expected from a Republican administration in the past. Obviously, Dr. Oz will be a part of that. HHS Secretary will be a part of that, likely if it's RFK, no matter who it is. You will see pharmaceutical companies most likely on defense.
All right, Matt Gorman, Julie Roginski, and Patrick Svint. Always great to see you. Patrick, I remember when you were at the Texas Tribune. Glad to see you at the Post now as well. All right, guys, have a great one.
Tonight, we start with the collision of 2 worlds in a way that we don't see every day, space and politics. President-elect Trump making his way to Texas today to attend the launch of the 6th Starship rocket system alongside Elon Musk. We're going to get into more in that launch in just a minute, but all of this happening as Trump released another flurry of cabinet nominees today. First, Wall Street CEO Howard Lutnick as Commerce Secretary, and second, Dr. Oz, the TV personality, has been tapped to run the Medicare and Medicaid agency. Let's bring in NBC's Vaughn Hilliard to break this down. Vaughn, so talk to us about these new picks. Howard Lutnick and Dr. Oz. Let's start with Dr. Oz. What's his expertise with Medicare and Medicaid?
It's a good question, Gotti. I think for a great part of the American public, they became familiar with Mehmet Oz through, of course, his syndicated show that Oprah brought him onto the map. And For nearly 2 decades, he had the syndicated program where he talked about health. Of course, he came under a lot of scrutiny, including up on Capitol Hill and under congressional questioning about some of the supplements that he was selling and the extent to which some of the healthcare remedies that he was touting were actually scientifically proven to be effective. And yet, we saw Mehmet Oz rise to the political scene back in 2022 when he ran for the Pennsylvania's U.S. Senate seat. He lost to John Fetterman in a close race, and yet he was Donald Trump's endorsed pick. And fast forward 2 years, Donald Trump returning the favor for his loyalty to him by selecting him to run CMS. Of course, this is going to be a federal healthcare system under Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s direction if he is confirmed by HHS or for HHS secretary position. But now here with CMS, he is going to have oversight of Medicaid and Medicare. Of course, though, there's going to be a lot of serious questions of Mehmet Oz as well as Robert F. Kennedy Jr. about the extent to which they could see entitlement cuts to these particular programs, because Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy have openly suggested that there needs to be a consolidation and cuts to the budget. And there is often within the Republican Party, they have looked towards this type of entitlement spending. So the question here is, to what extent will Mehmet Oz look to cut some of these spendings of these programs?
Yvonne, what do we know about Howard Lutnick? I mean, he's a veteran of Wall Street, but how does he fit into Trump's world here?
Exactly. Billionaire, longtime friend of Donald Trump. He heads up a brokerage firm and somebody who a couple months ago was named to be a transition co-chair for Donald Trump, along with Linda McMahon. And so they've really been on the forefront of these transition talks about filling an administration. I talked with Howard Lutnick about a week before the election at Madison Square Garden rally for Donald Trump. And he told me that he wanted to make sure that Donald Trump was going to be surrounded in 2025 if he were to win by loyal cabinet members, ones who, unlike in his first administration, he would not question their priorities and their obligation to the agenda that Donald Trump campaigned on. And so fast forward 2 weeks after Donald Trump's election, no longer is he just a transition co-chair, but now he is being tapped for this Commerce Secretary position. And we should note, Howard Lutnick is somebody here who has been on the front lines about defending Donald Trump's calls for increased tariffs come 2025 on goods entering the United States. Elon Musk and others have suggested that this could, have immediate hardships and consequences for the public at large, these tariffs here. But Howard Lutnick has made the case that there will be long-term gains by going this route. And so Donald Trump, having in the Commerce Secretary of Howard Lutnick, he has somebody who's not only a friend, a fellow billionaire, but somebody who is also ready to enact the agenda that Donald Trump campaigned on.
Bon Hilliard in West Palm Beach tonight. Bon, thank you.
So in recent news, Gates documents, legal documents, incriminating ones, and that contain allegations and evidence coming from his accusers have been hacked. Yes, they've been hacked, and these documents said to be enough to nail him, during the proceedings. Gates legal document President-elect Donald Trump trying to fight his way through for his nominees to scale through the finish line. All sorts coming up. We have these accusations, and these are very sensitive matters. These are very, very sensitive issues. What would happen in the coming days? What should we look out for? What should we anticipate? It is left for you to judge. Thank you so much for watching. I am Taiwo James Ayeng.